My name is Vincent Wijnen. I work at Sogeti Netherlands, service provider, quite a large one actually. I've been doing so for 17 years and I work there as an automation consultant. That technically means that I don't really work with anything sustainability related. But a few months ago, our company organizes a conference for our clients. 500-600 people visit, and we had a bunch of tracks with a bunch of topics, and they asked me to do the sustainability track, which is interesting because they know that I don't do anything with sustainability because I find it a very difficult topic to work with, especially when you, for instance, look at test automation. We just want to get stuff done, and we don't really care how much energy it uses. So that question, because I have a principle that I never refuse a stage. So if somebody offers me a stage, I'm there. And I'll find out what I talk about afterwards. And it took me on a little journey into sustainability, and I'm going to take you along through it, because it gave me some insights that I want to share. Because the reason that I generally don't tend to care a lot about sustainability is because it's huge. Whenever I also hear people talking about it, it's always about this thing. It's about that planet of ours. And you hear stuff like, you know, there's something going on with the environment. What is the environment? If I look outside, I don't see it, right? I don't feel it. They say, yeah, the climate, you know, something's happening, which is really hard for me to understand. Because again, this is something I don't work with. I do test automation. I am remodeling a very old house. So yeah, I am looking at getting a heat pump and doing insulation in our house. And we've bought triple glass, which is expensive as hell, but we got it anyway. But this is difficult. You know, they say there's an environmental catastrophe. And here I am chilling in my house where I don't have heating for 1.5 years because the heat pump is delayed and I'm actually enjoying the warmth. So this is really difficult for me to get into. So I asked them, because we do have people at Sogeti working with sustainability, and I asked them, so what do I do? Yeah, it's about, we have to reduce our emissions. Okay, emissions, interesting. And we have to conserve our energy and resources. So what is that for me? Really difficult. You know, reduce my footprint. I understand that sometimes I'd probably be better off taking the train than taking the car. So I came by train today, whereas normally I prefer the car because it gives me much more freedom. But the thing is, that thing is huge. You know, if I were on this picture, it's actually the wrong side of the planet, you couldn't even see me even if you increase the resolution of the camera tenfold, and that makes it hard. So I decided to set out on answering 2 questions for me, because I think our perspective on sustainability is way too large to ever be successful. That's what I'm going to be claiming. So the first thing that I needed to know, what is it actually about? So if we talk about sustainability, all I hear is electricity, CO2, gases, heating, that sort of stuff. I think there's more than that, and I need the more part in order to make sense of this. And the second one is I need this to go towards a smaller perspective, something not only I can relate to, because as you may have heard, I'm struggling with that as well, but also something my colleagues can relate to. I think over the past 17 years that I've worked for Sogeti, I've visited, I think I did a rough count, it's around 300 different teams I visited. I consulted 300 different teams. None of them ever talked about sustainability. I didn't mind, but I'm going to guess that you think that's a problem. And that's something that I wanted to look into. So whenever you want to know what something is, sustainability, you need like a definition. Well, that was a fun Google search because you find 1 million and then some definitions. And again, most of them are large. But I found a small one that actually made a lot of sense to me, because for me, that's what sustainability is actually about, and it leads to something that I can actually work with. The ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. Something you can keep on doing. It's as simple as that. So is this about the environment? Could be. Is this about me doing sports? I never do, but could be. Is this about the way our teams work and try to complete stories for their product owners? Could be about anything, and I think that's part of the beauty. So I'm a huge fan of Wikipedia, so of course I also went there, and what do we get? Sustainability is a social goal for people to have coexist on Earth. There's the Earth again. So I'm not doing that. Another thing I found is they usually use a figure like this. You know, they draw like this Roman or Greek temple roof. I'm no expert on that either. And they have some pillars under it. And the three most common pillars are social sustainability, which is about inclusion and making sure that we don't exclude people that are supposed to be here. We have economic sustainability, which is basically about making money and not wasting any of it. And we have environmental sustainability, which I suspect often is the main topic, which is about conserving resources, reducing our exhaust, and the rest of it. That's not all. There's much more. So over the years, a lot of research was done into what other types of sustainability are there, and the general consensus seems to be is that there are a few more worth talking about. The first is institutional sustainability, which is about preserving your organization as an institution and making sure that all the processes, etc., don't implode on itself. We also have cultural sustainability, which is about preserving our traditions and making sure that we don't appropriate stuff we don't have any rights to. And then we continue and we have technical sustainability, which is probably something that has to do with servers. And again, it's way too broad. You know, it didn't even fit the picture. So for me, this was problematic. And what I want to do is go from like a global perspective, which is absolutely unusable to me, to a more team-based perspective. Something I can go to teams with and talk about and have them actually do anything rather than just doing the stuff they've been doing all along. So how can I turn this into something teams can work with? And that's what I remembered. I mean, working in IT, we all know Agile, right? And a long time ago, we had the Agile Manifesto. Well, it's actually still around. And I was thinking there was something related to sustainability in there. So I looked up the website, and it still exists. It's really old, from like 2004 or something. And I read through all the principles, and true indeed, we have this one. I'll enlarge it for you. It promotes sustainable development, and you should be able to maintain at a constant pace indefinitely. And this is interesting because this is stuff I actually hear people talking about. But they never talk about this stuff in relation to the amount of energy they're using within their team. They're talking about it in that their PO is pressuring them too much, and their people are stressed, and that they don't have time for the things they actually think are important. That's what sustainable pace is actually talked about. And that gave me a connection point, made me pretty pleased as well, because that's maybe something we can work with. So I decided maybe this is a good starting point to define some principles that I, and maybe you, if you like them, can bring into teams and try and get them to work on what sustainability could also mean. So I formulated a bunch of them that I would like to share. My principles, and I organized them according to the three main pillars, because I actually like those, which is the social sustainability part, it's the economic sustainability part, and the environmental sustainability part. So the first one, I'm immediately starting with a quote, which is, imagine each other complexly. And I don't know if any one of you have heard of Hank and John Green. They make movies and are especially active on YouTube, and they always say, imagine each other complexly. And I love that, because it's something that I have to say a lot in my work. And what this means is when somebody says no, don't just assume they say no because they're an asshole. Assume they say no because they have a reason for it. Be interested. Ask, so why is this happening, and what can I do to help you turn this into a yes, and start from a place of interest. And take a little bit better care of each other, because I don't know about you, but I tend to not work with specialists and engineers and those sort of things. I work with people, and they might be an engineer as well, but they're first and foremost, they are people with their own backstories, their own luggage from their past, and you're going to have to deal with them. And what imagine each other complexly means is that you respect that. Another quote, just because I love those, that I sometimes throw in, you know, they hear, no, the administrator doesn't want to give us another server, what an asshole. You know, the moment we start judging, we stop observing. And that's a problem because we don't learn why they're saying no. Maybe they're super overloaded with work and our request is just not important enough and we just need to talk to somebody else. I think that's an important one. Second one, I have Chris to thank for that. No finer community manager in the country. Connect with each other. All of us are working in the same field, roughly. I don't know where all of you are working, but I'm going to assume it's somewhere related to IT. And a lot of people have been doing a lot of stuff already. And we can learn from each other. But for that to happen, we need to organize communities, look each other up, which is why I'm quite pleased to see so many people here tonight, because I heard it was going in the right direction with the number of participants. Because that's important. Learn from each other. A very simple way to prevent waste is just to talk to your colleague from a different team and find out where they failed and then also not fail yourself, right? It's quite easy. But what I, for instance, noticed at a lot of companies is that time spent at communities is not considered productive time. That sucks, because it is. And I think looking each other up is very important. So on the economic part, one thing that I'm always amazed of is that because my job is an automation consultant, so I visit a lot of companies that say, we want test automation. And my first question is always, why? Why would you want it? Because everybody has it. Oh, that's not a reason. I literally get told that stuff. It happened this year. This stuff has been around for decades, and they still say we need it because it's going to help us because everybody has it. Okay. Find the value. So make sure that you work according to a plan. A lot of times they say, yeah, we want 100% automation. Okay, why? What problem is it going to solve? I don't know, but it'll be faster. And that to me is really jarring. I notice more and more people are so busy, they don't have time to think about why we are actually doing it. If you can't answer the why, don't do it. Very simple way to prevent waste. And I find as a consultant, I'm often hired to fill in the why for them. And to me, that's really weird. So start with the value. And the second one, this is also really interesting to me, learn from the anti-patterns. Generally, when you have like a stage on a conference, I actually was at a conference 2 weeks ago, a whole week in Germany, the Agile Testing Days, highly recommended if you're into testing. And generally, the only thing you hear on stage is people's success stories. Yeah, we completed this, and we completed this, and we completed this. And they always explain how it went well for them and why it went well for them. And they try to explain why we should do it as well. But the problem is, different people, different software, different company, different country, different culture. So whatever they're talking about generally will not work at your place. So it's useless. It's entertaining to listen to, and some people can present fairly well, but that's about it. I learned that in research, so in university research, for your work to get published, you need to find something, right? So you find a new medicine against something and you test it, and it works, and it gets published. If it doesn't work, it does not get published. It goes into some drawer, never to be seen again. With the result that 2 years later, somebody thinks, maybe this chemical might work in this situation. They start up the entire research again. They start doing all the tests again. They find the same conclusion. They write the report. They didn't find anything that's going to actually help people, so the report gets shelved. 3 years later, somebody thinks, maybe this chemical will do something, and it starts again. That's a simple way to keep wasting on until eternity, right? So learn from people's mistakes and share them. These mistakes are actually really, really useful. It's not always about sharing the successes. I think the failures are much more important. If I avoid the pitfalls, I'll find my own success. Thank you very much. And finally, the environmental part. That's the easiest one, right? So waste less. It's very simple. I visit clients and they, for instance, have a nightly test run, right? So they have their entire test automation suite and they run it every night, including in the weekend. There's no point to that. The system didn't even change in the weekend. What point is it to have like 3 similar reports that are exactly the same? They say, yeah, but we have the automation scripts and it works fine, right? We don't even notice it. No, but you are burning all those CPU cycles. You are generating all these reports that need to get stored somewhere, and you don't even look at that stuff. One of the things we recently started talking to around automation with our clients is do your teams actually look at the test reports? Because it turns out they often don't. But if you don't, then why do you run the damn thing in the first place? Stop doing that. And if you go into that, there's a lot of examples that people are doing, but you're not looking at the results. So a very simple thing to do when you arrive in your team tomorrow is just look at what has been done and ask, did anybody look at this? And if they didn't, toss it out. Simple. And finally, I love this one, apply the Scout rule. And the Scout rule is very simple. Whenever you go somewhere, always leave it in a better state than what you found it in. Right? Very simple. Because, we work at a lot of big companies. Take all the big banks, all the big insurance companies, all the government agencies that we work for. They are rife with legacy. And nothing wrong with legacy, but the problem is nobody invests in legacy anymore. So there's an enormous amount of inefficient stuff running there that keeps burning up way more resources than needed. What I sometimes try and get developers to do is whenever you work on something and you think, this could be improved, don't create the to-do, fix it right away. And only report that you're done afterwards. Because, the moment we're done, we report to that stressed out product owner that we're done and so we can get on to the next task. Don't do that. Make it better and only then report that you're done. Because if we slowly improve the spaces we visit, whether it be physical or digital, then our software and our planet will get slightly more beautiful in the process. Some principles, things that I try to apply in my work. But it's still teams, right? It's a bunch of people and it's still relatively large. So what I want to do, zoom in a little further. I want to move it into like a single person because, as I said, I've spoken to like 300 teams in my work. None of them talked about sustainability. And I wonder why. And to make that a little more clear, I want to introduce a concept that Chris taught me actually, and it really changed the way I looked at how people work and how teams work. And that principle is called mental bandwidth. To add a definition, and it's a wall of text, so I apologize, it's basically a brain resource. And if it's empty, we get exhausted, you make mistakes, you're less engaged, you're less productive, etc. So sometimes I describe this at, when you wake up in the morning, you have like a bunch of brain tokens, right? I wake up, I have 400 brain tokens. I get up, I get an app, 2 tokens spent because I spend some attention on that. I go under the shower, I think of something, 3 tokens. I get in my car, where's my key? 4 tokens, right? I drive to work, I see some commercial advertising beside the road and I'm like, what's that? 4 tokens. And throughout the day, you keep spending these tokens. So maybe put a little more in practice in how that actually works. So let's say we have a normal day. Sun comes up, everybody happy, right? We get up, go for a walk with the dog, you take a shower, you go to work, you get some coffee or tea in my case, you talk with colleagues, have some meetings, work some more. Then you go back home, you need to have some dinner. Either you cook it yourself like I do or somebody else does. You spend some time with your family, it'd be nice. Oh, you also have to maintain some social relationships. You need to do some chores. We want to relax a little if possible. The damn dog again. And then we go to bed. Right? And then it's night and this stuff keeps happening. This is what we call the daily grind. Yeah, it's what we do every day. So how mental bandwidth works in this context is you get up with a full battery. And then throughout the day, you keep spending these brain tokens or this mental bandwidth energy on stuff that costs you energy. And hopefully at the end of the day, you have some left and you go to bed. And the next day you get up and the battery's full again and you can keep on going, right? That's how it's supposed to work. So basically anything that you spend any form of attention on during the day is costing you some of that energy. This is how it would preferably look. But what we find is that for a lot of people it doesn't look like this, it looks more like this. Because you can keep on spending that energy even when it's finished. So you come home and you're drained and there's a lot of stuff going on there and it requires even more energy. And you end up with a deficit, or you could say a debt. And the thing is, if you keep doing this, after a while, you break. And that's something we can see quite clearly also if we look at some statistics. This is the amount of sick leave in the Netherlands over the past 10 years. And if we talk about sustainability, I know we're used to a lot of graphs, right? CO2 exhaust going up, energy usage going up, heat records going up. But this is us. And if you talk about sustainability, this is what I actually worry about. And you could argue, maybe it's just, us being sick and with the corona stuff happening, etc. Had it last week, not fun at all. So what's the nature of this sick leave? Well, numbers where you want them. And if you look here, the yellow part is mental leave or psychological leave. It's people burning out. And what you then see happening is in the age groups from 2024 onwards, this just explodes. And I think that's quite a big problem. And I notice this a lot with my colleagues as well. Sometimes they come into the meeting. I usually work through Teams because it leaves people in their home where they feel safe. So it's easier to talk about stuff than on the work floor where the walls have ears. And I could just tell by their face, mental bandwidth already spent. And it's 4 p.m. So what I sometimes do is I do a mental bandwidth organizing session with them. And I just tell them, get a notepad or anything, share your screen so I can see what you write, and we're just going to write everything that's burning your mental bandwidth. Just write it down. So you get a list, long list, what's on it, it's not relevant, I had AI generated. So you get a long list. I sometimes get these lists from people with over 200 items on them. Yeah, stuff they're thinking about. I need to do this with my parents. Oh, this friend needs attention here. I need to do this for my work. This in the house needs fixing. The dog needs this. Lots of stuff that people are thinking about. And then I bring in this lady. You know her? Marie Kondo, Japanese home organization coach. And she asks very simple questions. So I do as well. We look at all of it and we say, does it spark joy? Does it make you happy? Is it unavoidable? So is it something you have to do? Fill in your taxes. That's quite unavoidable because it's going to cause you more problems if you don't. Or can we throw it away? And they're often really surprised at this. And then we just go through everything and we talk about it. They're like, yeah, I need to write, it's the year end. So I'm going to guess more than a few of you have the year-end evaluations coming up. So you have to get feedback from your colleagues. And one of my colleagues a few weeks ago was like, oh, I have like 8 requests from colleagues that I have to write feedback for. It was on the list, quite high actually. I said, does it make you happy? No, it doesn't make me happy. Is it unavoidable? Well, it's not mandatory, so gone. And we just went through that list, very simple. And a whole bunch was scratched off. Because the thing is, when people have spent their mental bandwidth, what often happens is that they say, yeah, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this. So in order to try and help them, we add more stuff on the list. That's not what we need to do if we want to make sure that people free up some of this. This really helps. Sometimes I could just see the people feeling lighter just by going through a simple session like this. But we also do this with teams, right? So if we have an IT team, I sit with them, and I just ask them, what's on your mental bandwidth list as a team? And you get something like this. A lot of stuff, API's not working, PO busy, etc., etc. And then we work with a lot of structures that are focused on dealing with this stuff. Engineering culture, IT for IT, community system teams, teams that work through the mental bandwidth of teams. And they try and solve some of that shit. So some of it gets solved. And what you see happening is that space starts clearing up in the mental bandwidth of the teams. And this is exactly what's leading me back into sustainability. Because I believe that if we keep talking about a lot of stuff that sustainability is about, nobody's going to listen. Not because they don't want to, not because they don't care, because they're full. You've seen the graphs. This is not going in the right way. And I think that if we look at that perspective and we try and help the people a bit and clear up some of the clouds so they can invest more of their mental bandwidth, for instance, in helping the teams, I think those teams will be much better enabled to do the stuff that we really want them to do, and hopefully part of the stuff they'll be doing with the bandwidth that has been freed up is try and help that planet of ours. Thank you.